He's honest, he's sincere, he's decent.
Prudence and temperance and justice and fortitude.
Incredibly creative. His word is his bond.
The most loyal friend imaginable. He's a man of principle.
An extraordinarily wise man.
These words craft an apt description of tonight's 2011 Lifetime Achievement Award recipient, Armando Codina, Chairman and CEO of Codina Partners.
It is very helpful to have someone like Armando that has a very steady hand when there are difficult things to confront.
Armando Codina is the ultimate Miami success story, arriving here as a 14-year-old Cuban boy who could not speak English, maturing into a successful, respected entrepreneur who has served on many of America's largest corporate boards. His mark on South Florida real estate is undeniable, but he points elsewhere to his proudest achievements.
My wife and my girls and my grandchildren are the only crowning achievement that is important to me and that I need. Everything else is very fleeting.
Mr. Codina's seemingly inexhaustible energy, coupled with an intense ambition to succeed, guided his career from the beginning. He survived a rocky start in America as a child spirited out of Cuba in a Catholic rescue mission dubbed Operation Pedro Pan, spending 3 years in an orphanage and foster care before his mother was finally able to join him. To support them, the young Codina dropped out of college in Jacksonville, worked as a bank clerk, and moonlighted as a bag boy at Winn-Dixie. Within a year, he became an officer at the bank. By the way, Codina later became a board member at both Barnett Bank and Winn-Dixie. His analytical and organizational skills, coupled with tremendous ambition and work ethic, led his boss at the bank to suggest he take his bilingual skills to Miami, and the rest is history.
Where others simply saw pieces of land, he saw full developments. When others thought he should be in the real estate business, he suddenly became a railroad man. Who knew?
A few years after making Miami his home, Codina seized the opportunity to begin his own business with an $18,000 SBA loan and knowledge of computer programming. He founded Professional Automated Services, a firm to organize medical practices, and the sale of his business provided the capital for his entry into the development world. His first significant real estate development was downtown Miami's Museum Tower, a 29-story office building in 1986.
Museum Tower, in my opinion, has withstood the test of time. When you go by I-95, it still looks like a great building. So I'd like to think that I built things that I leave things better than I found them.
But the real story is how he handled losing his anchor tenant, City National Bank, before the building opened. It helped craft his reputation as a man to be trusted.
I quickly realized that I just could not go forward with that transaction that he'd been working on for years, that the bank had borrowed money for, and go forward to make the bank profitable so I could buy it. So I had to go meet with him. I'd heard about him. I knew he was powerful. I was scared to death.
I did know Len Aravis, and Len Aravis came to see me with his attorneys, and I had my attorneys there. They were there to tell me that the bank was in such a bad shape that they wouldn't be able to, that the lease was a problem. So Leonard's attorneys and my attorneys began to having a big argument. This went on for about half an hour, and I looked at Leonard, first time I've seen him in my life, and I asked Leonard, why don't we have the attorneys get out of the room and have a conversation?
After about 2 minutes, Armando said to his lawyer, I think you have work back at your office. Why don't you go back to your office? Threw him out of the room, turned to me and said, how can I help? And I said, well, gosh, you could let me out of this deal and buy me out. And he said, okay. And I was just stunned. And it's a very long story, but had he not done that, I probably would not have been able to buy City National Bank. And I had known him 5 minutes when he did that.
Long story short, Leonard and I became very good friends.
Codina learned quickly to spot opportunities in changing markets, such as securing rights to the 200-acre Beacon Center site when Arvida was sold.
Beacon Center was the first Class A warehouse project in the market, and it was hugely successful. And what was interesting about it as well was it was a piece of land that was owned by the Tisch family for a long, long, long while. And Armando not only had the vision to anticipate, the great growth in our economy and international trade, which made this project very viable. He also had the skill and just the character to be able to develop a trustworthy relationship with one of America's great families.
Or later, merging his company with the mammoth firm Florida East Coast Industries, known as Flagler, which was headed by his good friend Adolfo Enriquez.
Flagler, it was easy. I have always lost it after their assets they had. That railroad had a lot of land, so FECI, Flagler had the best collection of lands that anyone could. So if you're a developer, you really won. That was like having, a piñata of land.
Over the years, he has made major development plays in warehouse and distribution centers, apartment complexes, and office sites in places like downtown Doral.
Vision, you've got to be able, as I say, you've got to be able to see a piece of land and see what could be on it. Understand the difficulties, understand the bumps in the road that you're going to have, but be able to see that gleaming city in the sky.
Just a couple of years ago, Codina flirted with retirement. He didn't like the market and decided it was time to get out. He sold his stake in Flagler, but the story is best told in his own words.
The day that I sold, I came home and I told my wife, no, actually we were in the car when I got called that everything had, wire had been received. And I was in the car with my wife and I said to her, Maggie, now that, I've done this, I'm not going to do anything else. I'm going to relax. And my wife is very insightful, very quiet, she looked at me and she said, sure. That's all she said. So if you had told me a year ago that we would be having all these people that we have now today and looking at the things that we're doing and the stuff that we're developing, I would have told you were crazy, but my wife was right. I can't help myself.
Those new projects include a venture in partnership with residential developer Jim Carr, rescuing defaulted infrastructure bonds in planned but unbuilt residential communities, such as Montera in Cooper City and Yellow Bluff in Jacksonville. The new family firm, Codina Partners, with COO Larry Gregg, provides a platform to involve a future generation of Codinas.
We are a family. We're investing mostly our funds. We do it with some partners. We are trying to do things that are very different than Flagler, because that was my other family.
Armando is also involved with building a stronger community and is a sought-after advocate for many projects, serving as the first Hispanic chair of the Greater Miami Chamber, the chair emeritus of the FIU Board of Trustees, and spearheading the national expansion of community partnership for the homeless. After Hurricane Andrew, Codina took over the committee in charge of the devastated Country Walk community, and many residents attribute him with saving their homes.
One of the reasons I admire and love him so much is he is able to balance as best of anyone I think I have ever worked with, both his family and his business and his love of the community.
Personal relationships are extremely important to Armando Codina.
Armando looked you in the eye, told you what he would do, what would happen, shook your hand, and that's all you ever need with Armando. I've been doing that with him for 25 years, and I'll take his word over a contract with anybody.
Early on, he supported little-known presidential candidate George H.W. Bush and twice served as an electoral voter for him. He invited Bush's young son Jeb to Miami to settle, and they formed a real estate venture that lasted many years.
I met Armando in 1978, I think. He was the co-chairman of my dad's presidential campaign back when George H.W. Bush was an asterisk. Armando, for some reason, it's an example of his great foresight, his ability to see things that other people don't, I guess. He signed up, and we became friends over that period of time.
But no relationships are more important to Mr. Codina than the one he has with his family. It's well known that lunch at his mother's home was more important to him than any business or community gathering. Ask any of the people he took along.
The one thing that I miss more than anything, and I'm sure Armando does as well, is going to have lunch with his mom. His mom was a spectacular woman. Reminds me of my mom. A Cuban version, or Barbara's a gringo version of Doña Rosa.
His greatest accomplishment, truly, a lot of people say this, very few people mean this. His greatest accomplishment is his family. His greatest love, his greatest passion, his greatest attention. The thing that is his rock is his family.
In his personal life, Codina talks passionately about his girls, wife Maggie and daughters Anna, Allie, Andrea, and Amanda. Be warned, he is a very proud papa and has been known to recite their resumes in acceptance speeches.
You know, I'm sorry I won't be there tonight. I'm grinding it out on the road somewhere. I don't know where, but I'm not in Miami. And I always, one of the great joys in life is to hear Armando speak. You know, he's a pretty serious guy in person, but when he gets in front of a microphone, something happens. He turns into Shecky Green.
In honor of more than 40 years as a phenomenal leader in the real estate industry and a rock-solid advocate for our community, we honor Armando Codina for his vision and look forward to many more successes in the years to come.
You know, I have a big windshield and and a very small rear view mirror. I don't look back too much.
Please welcome the 2009 Lifetime Achievement Award recipient, Terry Stiles, to introduce Mr. Codina.